There's one more kind of wilderness that we encounter in the scriptures, and it's not labeled exactly as wilderness, but if you think about it, it's wilderness, and that is the exile. Now, what happens is, God brings the people into the land. They live for a long time in the land, but they cease to be faithful to what God had called them to. They wandered off, even though God had brought them through and they were living in the land of promise. They got involved with other things. They got distracted. They weren't faithful, and so God brought judgment on them. And the judgment was that, of course, the armies of Babylon came in and carried them off into exile in Babylon, where they were brought back towards faithfulness. And it's a kind of exile and a kind of wilderness that they go to. They go in exile, they're in wilderness, and they're in a foreign land. And in the foreign land, there's nobody helping them, and there's nobody encouraging them. There's nothing but having to come back to God. They have nothing else left. Everything else has been wiped away, and they just have to depend on their God to come through that experience. And what that means to me is that, sometimes God brings us into a place of exile because we need to be brought back into faithfulness, into following Him faithfully. And I think right now, the church in the West is being carried into a time of exile where we live in a foreign land, where a hostile place, where everything around us is hostile to our faith and to our belief. But in the wilderness, in that exile, great things happen to those who will be faithful. And we read about Daniel, and we read about Esther, and how God worked incredibly with great and powerful works to bring them through in that place, in the land of exile. The three young men encounter the presence of God walking with them in the fire because they were faithful. They chose faithfulness, and they said, we will be faithful even if God doesn't save us. Even if we are burned in the fire, we will be faithful. And so, again, God's calling us back. Will you be faithful when it costs you? Will you be faithful when there's nothing else supporting it? When everybody's pushing you in a different direction, will you stay faithful to the truth of God that He's given you, the truth from the Scriptures, the truth in what God has spoken into your life, into your destiny, what He's spoken to you by the power of the Spirit? Will you be faithful to those things and hang on to them, even when it's costly, even when nobody else seems to understand? Because those who will be faithful will see the hand of God.